Hello, friends, and welcome to a belated edition of the Kings of Anglia podcast. It's Thursday, I think. It is Thursday, isn't it? Yeah, I'm your host, Mark Heath. And with me are two of the four kings. The third king, probably the second king, actually, overall. Andy Hutch-Warren is off. His partner in crime, Stuart Watson, joins us, though. Stu, good to see you. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, thanks. Andy's my first king.
Of course he is. He's everyone's first king. Stu's absolutely buzzing for the podcast today. Early this morning when I said we've got to do a podcast this afternoon, he went, "Oh, do we?" So yeah, it's a little insight into Stu's mindset going into this podcast. But it is what it is. We go again, Stu, and I'm sure you're going to be right on it today. A man who's always on it, and he's got hair all over his face as well. Ross Halls, how are you?
I'm good. I don't look like I'm on it. If you're watching this on video, dearie me, look at the state of me. What hole have I crawled out of?
Well, it's a question. It's a question that's often asked. If you look at me, my hair. If you're watching on video, my hair is a complete mess. I am booked in though, April the 12th, 12:30. This barnet is getting a bloody good trim. Stu, of course, you don't have those issues, which is good, I guess. But boys, before we talk about football, Easter period. Stewie, you've got a young daughter. How much chocolate will be consumed over the next few days? Have you done or will you do an Easter egg hunt? How big of a deal is Easter in the Watson household?
Yes. Yeah, loads of chocolate, Easter egg hunt, all the traditions in amongst covering a feast of football as well.
In amongst travelling to Rochdale on Monday, which I'm sure is how you'd love to be spending your Easter bank holiday weekend. Favourite chocolate, boys, quickly? Peanut M&M's got to be for me. God tier chocolate.
A double decker or a boost. They're right up there for me. Bit of nougat in there.
Unsung heroes there. They wouldn't be high on many people's list, but definite classics. Roscoe, obviously Jaffa cakes, but they don't really count as a chocolate.
No. Salted caramel Galaxy.
Oh.
Love a bit of salted caramel. I've been very posh.
Very posh for Roscoe. Right then, boys. First of all, we have to apologise to the KOA Army. There was no flagship show on Monday because Stu and Andy keep insisting on having time off. It's an absolute liberty. And apparently I've got to give it them. There are laws and everything. So they went around. We can't do a pod with just one of us. It'd be shite. So yeah, we have to wait until the boys are back. The boys are back, or at least one of them now. So let's get into the football. We're not going to talk about Wigan because the game day extra time boys reversed. We shuffled the squad. There was a pod on Monday about that. I don't really want to talk about the game. All that needs to be said about that is we had a complaint from a listener to that pod that Matt said the word bollocks too many times. I think that says all you need to know about the game. So, Stewie, what I want to start with, what I want to focus on today really is Mr. Cook this morning. You had the pressers. And it's fair to say he's given us a lot more than the Mr. Lambert used to. He was quite verbose this morning, Stewie. Lots of topics to cover. Where do you want to start?
Can I start by just rewinding to the Wigan thing? I like the idea that I dedicated so many hours of my life travelling to Wigan and back for it to be a footnote of that was a bit shit, move on. Left my house at 8:30, got back at midnight after a horrendous journey back, then sat up for another 3 hours. Then the clocks went, I was still writing at 1 a.m. And then the clock suddenly jumped forward to 2 and Andy texted me and went, oh yeah, the clocks go forward. All to write a load of stuff about a game that will instantly be erased from everybody's memories. So good times.
Stu, I did note, by the way, when I looked at that the next morning, Stu says went up at 3:11 a.m. Now normally that would be time bomb for 6, but I did wonder if you just put it there at that time deliberately as a pointed reminder that that's what time you're writing it. Was that the case?
That may have been the case, yes.
Was someone in a bit of a strop at the time, Stu? Were you having a little bit of a wobble?
I was tired. It was 3 a.m. I thought, do you know what? Does it matter if it goes up now or if it goes up in 3 hours' time? If anything, give it to the US market.
Exactly.
And we know that there's some US listeners here, so overseas.
There you go.
Clicks.
Insight. Stewie, I meant no offence. I know that you had a long day. As I say, you insisted on taking time off as a result. So there's your reward for that. Unless you've got anything you specifically want to talk about from Wigan, I suggest we jump right into Mr. Cook. Where you go then? Okay, Mr. Cook, on you go.
Paul Cook's press conferences are certainly, from a media perspective, and I'm sure for fans reading and watching, a lot more enjoyable than Paul Lambert's. He's very open. He's very transparent. I get the feeling that he tries not to be. He goes into all of these with the intention of saying what he wants to say, not giving too much away, but he just can't help himself. He just, he keeps talking and talking, and more comes out. So I guess the theme of this morning's one was he wanted to focus very much on to tell everybody this is all about the last 10 games. It's all about the short-term plan of getting in those playoffs, and there's still an opportunity here for us to get promoted. Despite the lack of wins, despite the lack of goals, it's still there for us. But there is excitement to come in the medium to long term, and he guarantees supporters there's going to be an exciting, vibrant summer of change, which people will read all sorts into. But kept bringing it back to it's about the short term. It's the here and now. If we don't make the playoffs, I'll have been a failure this season. So that's a flavour of what Mr. Cook had to say this morning.
I did enjoy this morning, Stu. There were some quotes that went out very early this morning on the club website with Leo Neal talking about this new approach to recruitment, looking at data and stats and stuff like it was a newfangled thing. Quite odd. So odd that at first I thought it might have been an April Fool's and they were going to go, obviously that's what we already do, because I don't know if someone literally has just watched Moneyball and thought, oh, we should do that. And kind of 25 years after the fact have decided that's what Town should do. What was your take on that, Stewie? It was a bit weird, wasn't it? I mean, so many clubs are already doing that. I don't know why Town would be trumpeting the fact they're not.
Sorry, I just got distracted by two pigeons at it on
lovely.
In my garden. Really quite violently as well. Sorry, that's quite a distraction. Yeah, you said about the Moneyball thing to me earlier. It did feel a bit like we found this newfangled thing called data analysis for recruitment.
There's this thing called Football Manager. It's amazing.
Of course, we've heard all this before. When Hurst first took over, it was all about sports science. Sports science was this newfangled thing that they'd kind of found, and we're gonna get with the modern program and really invest in that. And then they brought in Chris Winder, who's he was going to sort of head up all this new sports science thing, and they were going to be aligning themselves with Suffolk University, and that's not really transpired, is it? We've not seen sort of any uplift in terms of the injuries. If anything, they've got worse. So I think fans will treat this with the same sense of healthy skepticism and cynicism at the moment.
Now then, Ross, you're very sceptical, as everyone will know. What did you make of that? It was a bit odd, wasn't it? Don't you think?
Yeah, I don't know if you really need to announce that that's a thing you're just starting. As you said, we should have been doing this a couple of years ago. But yeah, whatever.
It's almost like going, hey everyone, we're miles behind the times, but we've just realised we are, and now we're going to do something about it. Just going back to the pigeons raucously at it, Stewie. I'm hoping now we're going to get someone using Photoshop to put faces on pigeons. That might be quite interesting. One of the KOA army. I know there's some interesting Photoshops we've had before. There's a challenge for you.
I've just got to correct myself before we move on. It's Nathan Winder, who was the sports science guy, and he's now gone on to Sheffield United. He's probably one of the men that's keeping David McGoldrick fit at this moment in time. Obviously,
doing an excellent job.
Yeah, and Ipswich, meanwhile, I've got Jim Henry up on gardening leave up in Scotland. So
yeah.
I'm very interested to see how this recruitment stuff pans out. I think Paul Cook has been gathering from what people have told me and what he said at the press conference. I think he's quite traditional in terms of the way he recruits. He's admitted himself, even at Wigan, which was his last job, he was sceptical of recruitment rooms and had to kind of be convinced up at Wigan, but was ultimately convinced that that's what you need in modern football these days. So how much they fully commit to that here, and crucially what that looks like, what data sources they use, who they employ to use them. That's going to be very interesting to see.
One of the other things I thought was interesting this morning, Stewie, from Cook, which is a theme that also came up when you spoke to Gwion Edwards, was sort of the team's mentality. Ross has left. He's just left. Brilliant. Ross has just walked off. Amazing. Put himself on mute. Was about the team's mentality and potential weakness. And he came at it from a different approach for me. He says, imagine what a little positivity, what a little cuddle, what a little love would do for them. That might help the situation over the final 10 games. But fans want to say what fans want to say. I'm sure that a high percentage of them are totally behind these players now. They know that we could get promoted this year. That's what we'll concentrate on. So there you go, Stu. The reason that Town are so mentally fragile is because no one's been giving them a hug. What do you make to that?
I think Paul Cook sees exactly what we're all seeing. I think his true thoughts have come out in the post-match press conferences, in that immediate aftermath where emotions are high. He's come out and talked about the players not being mentally strong enough. He's done that on more than one occasion. I think he's got this squad's number quite quickly. He said about learning quite a lot from last week, where he tried to put on the double sessions. Come the second day of that, they went to do the afternoon session on the Tuesday and just said that the players weren't able to replicate what they'd done the previous day. And by all accounts, the same happened again on the Wednesday, and that they were sent home at lunchtime. So he's talked about learning a lot, but I think a lot of those things he needs to keep private at the moment, because he knows that in the short term, he's got to work with these players, and there still is a major opportunity to get promoted this season. At the minute, that looks like an absolute pipe dream. We've talked about them potentially probably not making the playoffs in terms of their form, in terms of wins, in terms of not scoring goals. But I look around the rest of the division, and so many other teams are faltering and stuttering as well. So it could all change this Easter weekend. So he's right to kind of focus on the short term. And if that means that he's got to try and put a bit of belief back into these squad of players and say certain things to them that he doesn't necessarily believe, for the time being, he's got to try and make that happen. But yeah, I think his true thoughts have been coming out in these post-match ones, and then he comes round to a few days later when things have settled down. He's worked with them a bit, and then he has to try and sort of whip up the positive vibes again as you head into the next game.
Have you got any insight because that training thing was something that worried me last week, not being able to do 2 training sessions a day? Have you got any insight into the background to that? We know, for example, when Paul Hurst was here, that they weren't great fans of running, and there was issues around that. So is it kind of that they're not physically able to do it? Either they're not fit enough, or they're deemed that it's too much of an injury risk, or has it been a little bit of a shock to the system for them? Do you know?
It's very hard to say, because this season is so different to any other because of the way the fixtures have come thick and fast, a truncated season because of COVID. So maybe trying to do double sessions this deep into a season like this was naive, maybe, optimistic at best. I know people will say that footballers should be able to do a couple of training sessions in a day. They should have that sort of natural fitness built up because of the season. But if it had been any other normal season, I think that would be major alarm bells there. And you're right, that was, again, a theme going back to Paul Hurst. And a lot of the things that Paul Cook is saying is not massively different to Paul Hurst, who came in and talked about changing the culture of the club and getting them to be fitter and telling a few home truths, and look how that panned out. So it's certainly something that recruitment and fitness are two major areas that need to be looked at this summer. And I think Paul Cook's seen that already.
Roscoe, are you back now? You vanished for a second there. What was all that about?
Doorbell delivery, and I hate to do the Royal Mail, having to get it sent back, and it was Sash's, package. So I had to make sure to quickly answer the doorbell. So they were just about to leave, and they went, "Here we go." So sorry about that. I just wanted to quickly run off. I didn't want to interrupt your fantastic speech.
You're all right. Less of that. So Sasha's package has been secured. Stewie also spoke to Gwion Edwards this morning. I say spoke to, I mean, Gwion just tried out pretty much the same line for about 10 minutes about how we're just concentrating on the playoffs. But one of the things in there was again about mentality, and he said that I don't think it's fair to criticise the players. We've all worked very hard, etc., etc. And he also talked about his contract. Rossi, you weren't part of the contract chat that we had last week, I think it was. I've kind of lost track. The brutally honest contract discussion. He says that there's been no discussion as yet. Him and all the other players that are out of contract know that they're playing for their futures. Gwion, obviously, we know is your boy. Would you look to bring him back?
I think if we, yeah. I was going to try to say something smart there, but yeah, I'll say so. I think if we're going to still be in League One, I think
which we are.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I feel he'll add to what we need, and I think that is one position we lack at the moment with wingers. So I think if we got rid of him, I know I'm sure Paul Cook is going to be looking at the area to improve in anyway. But I think money was spent on Guion. He's proven he can score if he plays on left wing. So he needs to show Paul Cook these next 10 games that he can get more assists, score some more goals. Because I still want him to be top goal scorer because of my punt at the early of the season. So I think maybe depends what his future he wants. He may want a long-term contract though. He may not just want a one-year deal because maybe that's what the club will give him, maybe 1 year. So yeah, depends if he's got any offers on the table himself. So
yeah,
I tell you what, I had him down as a yes in our little thumbs up, thumb down chat last weekend. The performance at Wigan was almost one that would make me change that decision. It's certainly, if more of those performances are replicated, I would be leaning more towards the he's another one to put on the complete reset pile because he did not have a good day at Wigan, along with a lot of others.
He spoke also, Stu, about the new way that Cook wants him to play. He says he wants me to come inside a lot and create 2-on-1s overlaps with the fullbacks. And he was also asked about playing right back as well, which is, I guess, potential. Kind of said, "Oh, we don't know about the team yet, but I'll do that. Obviously, I'll play wherever Mr. Cook wants." But have you seen any sign of Cook kind of putting his imprint on this team yet, Stu? We've been 6 games in. We know what he wants. Has he had much of an impact in that respect? Would you say?
Yeah, yes, I have, but only in patches. I think the first 20 minutes against Plymouth. Who was it? The game afterwards, and we talked about 20 minutes becoming a 40-minute performance in the
Portsmouth, was
game.
it? Portsmouth.
I'm losing track. They're all blurring into one. But there's been spells in games where we've seen the Paul Cook ideals of being higher up the pitch. The buzzwords is we're hearing him during the game, and people can hear it on iFollow. It sounds like he's playing play your cards right. It's just higher, Teddy, higher, Andre, and his sort of gravelly Liverpudlian voice that sort of changes as he speaks. So he wants them to play higher. He wants them to play on the front foot. He wants them to be more aggressive. Lots of crosses into the box. Fullbacks playing virtually as wingers and getting ahead on the overlap. I think the chance just before half time when Kane Vincent-Young went off injured was really the sort of chances that he wants to see Ipswich creating, where the fullback sort of gets beyond on the overlap and gets in a cross low inside the box. So we've seen it in fits and starts, but not consistently, not from half to half, not from game to game. So I don't know whether that's going to be different personnel, the team being fitter, various elements that go into that in order for them to be able to produce it on a more consistent basis.
We'll talk about Kane Vincent-Young and potentially a shift in formation when we get onto the look ahead to the Easter weekend after the strike, which we'll go on to in a minute. The other thing we should mention, of course, this morning, Stu, was there was a bit of an update on futures of a couple of players, Emir Hughes and Luke Thomas, who we haven't really seen or are expecting to depart. And it certainly seems that that's going to happen, doesn't it?
Yes. Paul Cook's mentioned a couple of times that the club will make some announcements on those two in due course. Neither have been involved in matchday squads for some time now. As looking back, I don't think Emir has been in a matchday squad since mid-January time. Because he scored the winner against Burton just before Christmas, didn't he? And we thought he was the one that had the first symptoms of COVID and kind of sparked the COVID scare. It turned out he didn't actually have COVID. He obviously just had sort of cold-like symptoms, and the others all went down with it. But he's barely featured since then, so it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work out that his time is coming to an end. So I think it will be a matter of sort of sooner rather than later that some sort of an announcement on his situation comes out. Luke Thomas, has only played, I think, 4 starts, 1 sub appearance since arriving on loan from Barnsley. Again, hasn't been in match day squads recently. There is that loan hasn't been terminated, but he has gone away from Ipswich at the moment for some personal reasons, which will be down to him and the club to announce that when they feel is ready. So it's not completely impossible that he comes back and has a role to play before the end of this season, but I would say that's higher than likely from what we're hearing.
Okay. All right. That's the roundup done. This is a KOA light, really, because today has been very busy. Easter week generally is a nightmare with time off and 2 games to prepare for and a short week and clocks going forward, all that sort of stuff. So it's going to be a shorter show today, but we're still going to bring you the same little interlude of brightness into your life, courtesy of the bearded wonder, Ross Halls. Take it away, Ross.
Happy Easter, everybody. Welcome to a Strike Easter special. Done some research, had to use the Google Calendar to know when Easter falled every year to get this correct. So, yeah.
this is a promising start.
So I've tried my best to bring you some good facts, some fun facts. So, are you both ready?
Born ready.
Okay.
Yes, I think so.
I will make sure that I will know my middle name this time because that was oh dear, that was not good, was it? But anyway,
it was very good. A lot of people actually said it was one of their favourite moments ever. My wife said that it made her laugh out loud while she was running. So there you go. That's the sort of joy that you bring into people's life, Ross.
Ross, you do know before we proceed that Easter doesn't fall on the same day.
Yeah.
Day
I know.
every year. Okay,
I know. That's why I had to Google it. There is like a thing that shows Easter weekend or Easter Sunday as a whole from the 1700s to 2099 because there is, the calendar's sorted by then. So yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, in 1993, question 1. Different format as well, as these are specials. The normal format, blast from the past and flashback, is not involved. So, yes, in 1993, Town lost 2-1 at Blackburn on Easter Monday, which was live on Sky Sports. But which player scored an own goal that day? So, who scored an own goal against Blackburn? Was it Phil Whelan, Gavin Johnson, or Vladio Bonzaniski?
What? Who?
Vladio Bonzanowski. That's right. That's the proper one. Bonzanowski.
I honestly don't know if that doesn't sound right to me, but there you go. Gavin Johnson.
I honestly didn't know. I don't know what a Vladio Bonzaniski is.
No,
have you just made that up?
I've never heard of him.
He signed the same, I think, the same week as Boncho. So
did he?
Okay.
Your old friend.
Right, I'm going to say him. Was it Vladio?
Yeah, no, it was Phil Whelan.
Oh, fucking.
So yeah, there we go. So yeah, my first Easter Monday saw the Blues. So back in 1997, saw the Blues lose 2-1 at Grimsby. Which Town player was also sent off in that game? Was it James Scowcroft, Neil Gregory, or Danny Sonner?
Your first Easter.
It's a wee nipper.
A wee nipper. I'm going to say Danny Sonner.
This is where Hutch would be destroying us.
Oh, yeah.
His sort of era. I'm going to say Danny Sonner because you said it in your...
It was James Scowcroft, actually.
Oh, this is dreadful. This is just a replication of the Town at Wigan. It's going to be a 0-0 list. Awful.
Fun fact, the year before, on Easter Monday in 1996, the Blues lost 3-1 at Grimsby and had a player sent off too. Which player was it? Was it James Scowcroft again, Tony Vaughan, or Mauricio Tirico?
This is the year before.
Yep. They lost against Grimsby again on Easter Monday, this time 3-1.
Could it be? No, I'm going to say Tirico.
What were the other options?
Scowcroft or Tony Vaughan?
Tony Vaughan.
It is Tony Vaughan.
There's finally a goal. There's a shot on target and there's a goal.
And Tony Vaughan scores it.
The back of the
net. Tony Vaughan gets it.
On Easter Monday in 2002, the top tier of the North Stand was used for the first time. as the Blues drew 0-0 with Chelsea. But who missed the penalty for Town in that game? Was it Tommy Miller, Marcus Stewart, or Marcus Bent?
As you say, if Hutch was here, he'd be about 4-0 up now. I'm going to say Marcus Bent.
The others didn't miss too many pens, did they?
Tommy Miller never missed a penalty, did he? So it can't be him. No, I mean, it could be him, Stu. Absolutely, it could be.
I'll say Bent as well on that basis.
And it is Marcus Bent.
Ah!
So 2-1. Going into the final question, and then we've got a tiebreaker. Now, who scored Town's goal in the 1-1 draw with Birmingham City as Town were relegated to League One on Easter Monday? Was it my boy Gwion Edwards, Caden Jackson, or Colin Quainer?
Well, Stu should know this because this was obviously a game that he was at.
What was it? Played Birmingham?
Yeah, who scored?
Who scored for Town that day?
I'll go first, obviously, because you know this. I vaguely remember it being Quainer, but games just blend into one, so I'll say Quainer.
Quainer, and who were the other two?
Jackson or my boy. You know the rest.
I think it is Quainer, isn't it?
No, it's actually Edwards.
There's an insight into what covering a team.
So many memorable moments.
So many games, they just merge into one.
Definitely that season.
Stu wins 2-1.
Yeah, I do have a tiebreaker if you want to.
Of us just doing head tennis backwards and forwards, sort of misplaced passes, moans and groans, and I've scrambled one in. Yeah.
Do you want to do the tiebreaker, Ross? Just because you've gone to the extent of putting one together.
Yeah, go ahead. So we mentioned good old Hughes earlier. Of course, he scored that memorable volley against Newcastle on Easter Monday in 2017. But who crossed the ball for the volley? Was it Freddie Sears, Brett Pittman, or good old Jordan Spence?
That halcyon day seems a long time ago, doesn't it? I'm gonna say.
Go on.
I would say Freddie Sears.
Well, it came up the right-hand side. I remember the cross because Emir sort of arrived at the back stick, didn't he, in front of the North Stand. So I'm going to say Jordan Spence.
And you're both wrong. It's actually Brett Pittman, surprisingly.
I think that's the single.
Sorry, that's the last time Ipswich won over an Easter weekend.
Is it?
Wow. Yeah.
And what a win that was.
A win.
Everything seemed so rosy at that point. Emir was scoring. Town beat Newcastle. It was brilliant. I think that might be in terms of our performance, Stu, probably the worst strike there has ever been. We need the quality of Hutch for the strike. I think it shows. There you go, Ross. Take it away.
I just want to, for video, you won't be hearing the jingle, but I just want to quickly do a couple of seconds silence here for Barry Cotter. Of course, he's recently left the club, so if we can have a little 3-second silence, please. Thank you. So best of luck to good old Barry, and here we go for the outro. There we go. Good old Baz.
There we go. Right then, boys. We're at 28 minutes. I want to get this done by 35 minutes. We've got to talk about Easter weekend, Stewie, and we've got to start with some injury news. Kane Vincent-Young. Well, I say injury news. It wasn't really news, was it? It was just how would you describe it this morning? There was no real update, was there, apart from that Town have got more injuries?
Yeah, I don't think Paul Cook's going to be giving too much away on injuries. He's someone that wants to just talk sort of in vague terms about those, in terms of not giving too much away. So didn't want to say too much about the hamstring problem that forced Kane off, which obviously is a major, major blow. That was a gamble, a risk that backfired, putting him into the starting lineup. So didn't give an update on that and just said we've actually got a couple more injuries as well that I don't really want to reveal at this moment in time. So who we are, we don't know. Ollie Hawkins could come back into the reckoning. He's obviously been out for a while following knee surgery. He was on the bench last weekend, unused, played for the 23s on Monday. Who else have we got? James Wilson missed the game with a knee problem. I think he had a bit of fluid drained off the knee. I think that was touch and go whether he would have been available for next week, for last weekend. So he could well come back into the equation. The others are sort of the longer term ones: Flynn Downs, John Nolan, Luke Matheson. I think is still struggling with an unspecified injury as well. So we'll see who these mystery other couple of players are that have picked up injuries.
Well, clearly they're playing the bottom two sides in the league. 6 points, you would think, is the only thing that is acceptable at this point for Town. But to do that, Roscoe, they've got to find a way of scoring goals because they are toothless. So they need to find some bite. So how do you reckon they do that? Do they consider going 4-4-2 and sticking Caden up top with Norwood? Is that something you would think about doing?
Yeah, definitely, because the other formation, I know that's Paul Cook's favourite formation. That's what he uses a lot during his other spells in management. But just at the moment, we ain't got the players who can play that formation, really. I think Troy Parrott's back in it because he's been for Ireland, for their qualifiers. So he then adds that extra body there. But yeah, I feel like we just need to go with 2 up front for the rest of the season, and then he can go back to his favourable formation, in the summer when he can bring his own players in. So, yeah, I think that's the way we're going to hopefully create and score more goals. Is hopefully play at 2 up front, but it can also may not happen either. Maybe the players are just not good enough to create goals. So, yeah.
I mean, Cook spoke after Wigan, didn't he, Stu? He said that he really wants to give Caden a run in that position, but it's not something that his teams have played traditionally.
Yeah, we're getting a kind of a stream of consciousness from Paul Cook, and both after the Portsmouth and the Wigan game, he said, "Listen, lads, I'm really tempted to get Caden Jackson and James through the middle alongside James Norwood. I'm sure he's looked at it, and the last time Ipswich were scoring goals consistently was at the start of last season with those 2 up front together. I think we all know now that Caden is much better suited to a 2 up front than trying to lead the line on his own. James Norwood has proven that he will score goals. I think he's ticking along quite nicely at a goal every 2 games at the moment, but it's the supply line which is the problem. He's tried every combination of 3 players in behind at different stages now. So I wonder now whether this is the tipping point for him to go, do you know what, I'm going to sacrifice the extra body in midfield and go with 2 up front. Or you said it could be 4-4-2. It could also be wing backs, which enables you to keep the 3 in midfield. It gives you the chance to play 2 up front, puts a big strain on those playing wing backs. But you mentioned there the Gwion Edwards interview where he was asked about the prospect of playing right back, which I believe has been a discussion along the way since Paul Cook's arrived. Whether we see Gwion Edwards back in a wing back position, which we've seen him play before. You never know.
Ross not a big fan of that. Looking at his face, for those of you just listening, that's a no from you, Ross.
No, no. He's just the thing with Edwards. He's good going forward. He's creative. Well, somewhat not the last few months, but he can't defend. He can't tackle. The amount of yellow cards and bookings he got. So that's a fear of mine. He could easily get sent off, and we'll be losing a man. So wing backs, I've never really been a big fan of it. Only use it if you've got players to play there. But if he goes with that route, then yeah, we'll see what happens.
Edwards, to use a term that my late dear granddad used to say, weighs 7 stone, piss wet through, I think. So I'm not sure that physicality lends itself to defending in League One, but we'll see maybe. Stewie, am I right in saying that anything other than 6 points is a massive disappointment for Town this weekend?
I think so, yeah. The picture could change massively. Paul Cook's right, win these 2 games, back in the playoffs, and suddenly it will seem all back on again. You're playing the bottom 2 teams back to back. This is you have to target 2 wins. You have to. Bristol Rovers haven't won. I was just looking. They haven't won away from home since early December. They've lost 16 of their last 22 games. It's a club where there's a real losing mentality that's crept in there. So back at home tomorrow after a lot of miles on the road, got to get the weekend off to a winning start and then take that into Monday up at Rochdale. They're bottom. Yes, people will say it's not great to be playing teams that are scrapping for their lives at this stage of the season, but they're bottom and second bottom for a reason this deep into the season. If Ipswich have got any ambitions of getting into the playoffs and ultimately doing something in those playoffs, got to be winning these games. Absolutely.
And Bristol Rovers' defensive record is not good. I've just had the pleasure of writing leaking gas in print, Stu, as a headline. I'll pat myself on the back for that. Absolutely superb. So give us a prediction then, Stu. Tomorrow, Bristol Rovers, what are you saying?
2-0.
You think Town are going to score twice? Bloody hell.
Yeah, I thought it, I said it, and now I'm going to commit to it.
Now you committed to it. Roscoe, what are you saying?
It's hard, it's actually getting harder now to predict because, early in the season you sort of chuck out random scores here and there, but I don't. It's not going to be great, I don't think. Definitely after the last few games. 1-0 Town. Why not?
1-0 Town. We got there in the end. And then Monday, Stu, for your trip to Rochdale, you may have snow as well. I'm hearing. Might be snow on Easter Monday. Grim up north with some snow at Rochdale. Can I get you to predict that as well?
Yeah, nice trip to Rochdale. I keep thinking, do you know what? We've broken the back of all these trips. We've done a Tuesday night in Fleetwood. We've done a Tuesday night in Hull. We've done a Tuesday night in Accrington. We've got Wigan out the way. And then I go, oh yeah, next weekend we're going to Rochdale.
It's glamorous.
I think they'll win there as well.
So you're saying saying 6 points?
Yeah, I'm saying 6 points. But I did do the predictions for the last 11 games last week, where I had them down for a draw at Wigan. I had them down for wins in these next two, but I did still ultimately have them falling short of the playoffs. So, yeah, that's why these two have, they could win these next two and still not do it. So this is why these two have got to be must win, I think, to stand any chance.
And Stewie's saying they will win them. Roscoe, you're saying they'll win against Bristol. Are they going to win at Rochdale as well?
No, I think it's going to be the same as the Wigan game. I think you're going to have a lovely day in Rochdale and seeing a goalless draw. So enjoy.
A 0-0 in the snow in Rochdale, and then next week Stu will say, "Well, we're not even going to talk about that either." I spent 24 hours of my life in Rochdale. It was a complete waste of time. Is that what you're telling me? Okay then, boys. That's been a very quick KOA Light. I'm sorry it's shorter than normal. Clearly, this week has been a challenge from a staffing and workload perspective, but it's really important that we got one pod out to you ahead of the Easter weekend. As I say, the game day pod, Extra Time Posse was out on Monday this week, just so we could bring you something from the weekend. So go back and listen to that if you haven't already, unless you're offended by the term bollocks, in which case, please don't, or maybe hum when Matt is profaning all over the place. Thanks very much for listening. We'll take our leave. Have a great Easter. Eat lots of chocolate. Fingers crossed it will be 6 points for Town. And we'll speak to you again next time.